So while I was on vacation, Nintendo decided to casually drop a direct entirely dedicated to Kirby Air Riders. On that day, I dropped a gusti of my gelato, and I knew something was wrong. A full 40-minute presentation revealing proper gameplay, background details and all kinds of features. When I finally got back and checked it out, I genuinely thought it was one of those livestream archives, where 80% is just a starting soon screen. But no, it was more packed than that one Luigi render. This was the chance to show the direction Air Riders is taking, its release window, and just how ambitious the project really is. They even sat down with my favorite YouTuber again, the man who dared to make people buy an Xbox on an officially Nintendo produced video. Apparently English voiceovers no longer necessary. Sakurai proved he can carry not only an entire presentation by himself, but also Nintendo's marketing budget as well. The only thing missing was his mysterious off-screen audience, laughing at his jokes while he roasts Knuckle Joe for finishing City Trial with the Compact Star.
It's
safe to say that after this direct, Air Riders completely erased any concerns fans might have had. And I'm still stunned by everything that was revealed. I predicted a competent sequel to one of my favorite Kirby games, but I didn't anticipate such a faithful, self-aware and most importantly, similar successor. In this video, I will be philosophizing about the direct as if it were the third coming of Jesus, and go over a few nitpicks I'm still slightly worried about. One thing I didn't expect to learn was how Air Riders was actually pitched. There had been rumors that Sakurai wanted to make a follow-up to Air Ride as part of an arrangement to develop the next Smash title, but it appears that it was Nintendo and HAL themselves who approached him with the idea. I don't think he gets nearly enough credit, but Shinya Takahashi might be the hidden MVP at Nintendo. Not only did he personally apologize in a YouTube video for the Metroid Prime 4 delay, but he also played a key role in making Air Riders happen. Unfortunately, there was no direct comment on how it personally feels for Sakurai to return to working on Kirby, but disproving the allegations gave us a hint. Maintaining the agenda is no longer the priority, as several characters, once Sakurai didn't originally create, have been confirmed as playable. While the roster so far sticks to a few safe picks, there's still meaningful representation across eras. Gui from the Dark Matter trilogy, Margalo and Susie from the modern era, and of course Bandana D. I'll keep my cards close regarding the full list of confirmed characters and the broader topic of modern Kirby representation for a future video. But the selection looks promising and even includes niche characters who weren't playable in Star Allies. However, this raised a major question. Is Kirby the only character allowed to use copy abilities? As Sakurai pointed out, giving only Kirby access to them would put every other character at a clear disadvantage. But at the same time, copy abilities are too essential to Air Ride's identity to be replaced with just items. The solution couldn't be simpler. Ignore lore, self-imposed rules, or canon consistency, and prioritize the one thing that actually matters in a game: fun. By bypassing a narrative hurdle no one truly cares about, Air Riders gives us multiple characters, keeps the original item system intact, and takes the golden opportunity to put ability heads on everyone. Some even have unique methods of copying. DDD sucks enemies in, and Gui uses his tongue. It's all contextualized enough to feel right, and it frees Air Riders from franchise-coded restrictions. The new inclusions feel so natural that it even took me a moment to realize that Kata wasn't in the original. Jet basically acts like the speed boost item from Air Ride, and Steel Ball was easy to model and code. In hindsight, it's almost ironic how much time we spent speculating about whether copy abilities would return or how they might be reworked, when the real answer was staring us in the face all along. Who cares? Just do it. Keeping the controls so close to the original surprised me. The big question must have been whether to complicate the controls for the sake of a deeper gameplay, or to preserve the one-button scheme and find new ways to make it engaging. Sakurai's sneaky gag about unfortunately adding a second special button confused a lot of people unfamiliar with one of Kirby's core design philosophies, which I plan to explore in another video. That said, the team seems to have found the perfect middle ground. Special moves function almost like Ultra Smashes, giving each character unique traits, while also adding much needed flair and tension to races. Of course, this also means there's bound to be a best character, with noticeable discrepancies in utility, especially since each rider has their own passive skill. Still, it's worth remembering that we're talking about a party game. Despite the fact that this single special move might make a difference in a race, the same doesn't necessarily apply to City Trial, where the chaos tends to equalize the stakes. Hidden mechanics like perfect landings or hitting other riders for a speed boost never had much impact in Air Ride, as the game suggested. understood. And I hope Air Riders leans more heavily into emphasizing those small but important subtleties. That seems to be the case so far, and it's the kind of depth that could give each race the complexity they need to complement the otherwise simple controls. Much to my flabbergasting, there's no wall riding, no underwater sections, and no major focus on gliding. Just by watching, Air Riders feels extremely close to the original, with only minor adjustments, and it proves that Air Ride's potential was always there, it just needed proper execution. Another big question was, which machines are returning and will the new ones be based on established Kirby elements? From what we have seen, it looks like nearly every machine from Air Ride is heading back, alongside several newcomers. This is worth highlighting because it touches one of Air Ride's original shortcomings, largely due to its rocky development. Many of the machines weren't especially useful. The supposed specialities were often unbalanced or outright impractical, and I'm hoping Air Riders takes a more polished approach this time around. All the new machines shown so far feel distinctively Air Ride in design, so much so in fact that I wouldn't be surprised if the original vehicle designer was evolved again. And with the possibility of even more yet to be revealed, we're finally getting an appropriate variety of machines and riders. The racing mode, Air Ride, was arguably the part I was most curious about. City Trial was a given, considering its immense popularity, but the Air Ride mode always lacked the polish to feel like more than a side mode, fun mostly for unlocking achievements. With 6 riders per track, a not so subtle jab at Mario Kart World, and an extensive gameplay showcase, I'm now almost more excited for racing than City Trial. The overall flow looks noticeably more hectic and action-packed, which works in part thanks to the simple controls. Players don't have to juggle complex inputs or risk slowing down due to speed-reducing hazards. They just need to move forward and survive the chaos around them. The track shown highlights everything I loved about Air Ride. Thrilling backgrounds, branching paths, rail grinding, and when the camera paused for a moment as Kirby launched from the Machine Passage-inspired cannon, I feel like the game was flirting with me. Whew. Also, call them overused or even uninspired if you want, but rail grinding will never not be cool. And no game has ever been made worse by including them. Another reason why the Air Ride mode feels much more tempting this time around is the handling of health. Many players probably didn't even notice, but in the original you could enable a health system that allowed racers to be knocked out mid-races. The option had to be manually turned on, and it looks like Air Riders continues this approach to keep the mode accessible, but the key difference is that health actually seems balanced this time. In the original Air Ride you could get destroyed even before finishing the first lap, which clearly showed the health mechanic wasn't tuned properly. That doesn't seem to be the case in the sequel. Damage taken in the footage so far looks far less punishing, and the introduction of a new rage mechanic, where riders gain a speed boost when heavily damaged, suggests the system is finally being embraced as part of the core design. You wouldn't introduce mechanics like that unless you wanted to encourage a specific playstyle, so I really hope the online mode doesn't default to a safe, no health setting with no option to change it. On top of that, there's a second comeback mechanic, this one focused on catching up to first place. Riders in the lead will leave behind a trail of stars, and riding over them gives following players a speed boost. Star slides, as the game calls them, function almost identically to the team boost mechanic in Team Sonic Racing, but look much more discreet. Drawing a striking yellow line that practically screams "touch me as much as you can" gives players an intrinsic incentive to follow its trajectory, often without properly paying attention to their surroundings. For experienced players this isn't much of an issue as they are trained to process multiple gameplay elements at once, but beginners tend to hyper-focus on such visually dominant cues. Star slides, by contrast, are far more inconspicuous. This allows less experienced players to focus more on learning the controls, understanding copy abilities, and recognize track patterns, without being visually funneled into one specific behavior. In the best case, they might not even realize why they're going faster, which makes the assistance feel more organic and less intrusive. Both of these newly introduced ideas are not just welcome, they are necessary to ensure fair competition, since there's no way to perform stylish tricks or advanced movement techniques due to the limited controls. Experienced players don't have many tools to regain ground once they fall behind. Everyone moves forward automatically, and while stats, special moves and passive abilities vary between characters, I can't imagine that alone being enough to consistently go from last to first. There needs to be some advantages that frontrunners don't have, and since there are no bullet bills or self-regulating items to bring you forward, there had to be another means to turn the tables. We still can't say for sure how much the course design will influence each race. The flowery field shown in the teaser trailer is clearly meant to be the tutorial track and strongly resembles Fantasy Meadows from the first air ride. The rest of the tracks, however, appear to be entirely original. Interestingly, none of them are based on iconic Kirby locations, but I don't see that as a flaw. In fact, new environments can be just as, if not more, engaging. Based on the beach track Sakurai showcased, it looks like each course will feature a wide variety of themes and settings, possibly as a way to compensate for a relatively small total track count. I hope the final game includes at least as many tracks as Air Ride, but I'm preparing for the worst while appreciating what we have seen so far. The new Air Ride mode finally looks like it's getting the level of polish it desperately needed, and hopefully it will turn into a comparable alternative to City Trial. As Sakurai fittingly stated, all eyes are undoubtedly on the new City Trial mode. The very reason Air Ride became so popular in the first place and why Air Riders even exists. I find it interesting that he's so aware of this fact, especially considering they likely don't have any data on which mode was played the most. That kind of insight comes from being genuinely engaged with the community. It highlights what makes Sakurai so unique. He approaches development like a passionate indie creator, but with the resources of a major studio. He's essentially making high-budget fan games with none of the repercussions, and the new City Trial version is the perfect proof. The rules remain unchanged, the gameplay feels seamlessly familiar, and the overall structure of the map is intact. Unfortunately, it appears there's only one world, but it's a multi-layered island packed with secrets, hidden spots, and even a floating platform in the sky. Just like in the original City Trial, there's a volcano, presumably used to launch players to said sky platform, an underground area, destructible trees, and transit stations for quick travel. Even the entrances to the underground sections look nearly identical. Placing City Trial on a massive island at the edge of the horizon feels like the natural evolution of the original map. By keeping many of the familiar elements but reassembling them into a new constellation, the result feels less like an entirely new location and more like a carefully renovated home. The reason Skya fits the gameplay so much better than the original city is the location in the sky. While there are probably some boundaries preventing players from flying too far out of bounds, we already saw the flexible potential during the direct, and Sakurai flew around the island to avoid a swarm of giant Gordos. This verticality adds a new strategic layer. Collecting glide boosting stat items can now give you the option to escape certain events entirely, whereas in the original, it was almost always smarter to stay grounded and focus on improving your machine. That said, it's the stat items themselves that I'm still a bit unsure about. The stat items are slightly larger this time around, likely to compensate for the increased map size, but I'm not entirely sold on the new collection animation. When you pick one up, the game holds the item above your character for a bit too long, at least for my taste. I can't help but to wonder if there will be moments where this effect interferes with visibility, especially during more hectic or crucial parts of a match. After all, City Trial now feels noticeably faster and more action-packed, thanks in part to the ability to switch machines seamlessly on the fly. You can still dismount and walk around, which should be especially fun considering the expanded roster of characters. I really hope they each have unique abilities on foot to add some extra variety. Newer events also push players into direct interactions, whether by triggering a sudden race on the map or starting a quick fight. What I appreciate most is that participation isn't mandatory. You can choose to take the risk or play it safe and keep collecting stat items while everyone else is distracted. The returning events are just as strong. Dynablade finally makes a 3D comeback after more than 20 years, and Krakow joins the lineup of giant boss characters. I bet Tag will return too, and yes, they even brought back that random giant pillar. The minigames at the end of each round are largely the same in structure but now feature different locations. Letting players vote for the end of round minigame is one of the smartest design choices they could have made. Powering up your machine only to be thrown into a minigame that doesn't play into your strengths can be incredibly discouraging, random foreshadowing or not. Being able to vote adds a layer of strategy. You might not pick the best option for yourself, but rather one that puts the strongest player at a disadvantage. That's just as valid as a tactic as going all in on your own preferences. I really hope there are more events and minigames we haven't seen yet, and fingers crossed the game gets post-launch support, maybe even a second City Trial map down the road. But honestly, even if this is 90% of what City Trial has to offer, I'm completely happy with it. All I ever wanted was a modern City Trial mode on a new map with refined mechanics and online functionality. The only thing left is the teased story mode. When you look at how Smash Ultimate Hype Cycle was structured, the similarities with Air Riders are hard to ignore. An initial teaser confirming the game's existence, a dedicated presentation diving into core gameplay, and a big reveal teasing a single-player campaign. It looks like Air Riders is following the same pattern, and to be frank, I'm still a bit speechless that the story mode exists at all. It's something I fully welcome, but never really considered a possibility. Party games usually offer bare bones story modes, short campaigns designed mainly to teach the basics, dressed up just enough to be advertised on the back of a retail box. And for the sake of tempering expectations, that's exactly what I assume it will be. But still, that final teaser did just enough to raise the bar. While I mourn the missed opportunity for Sakurai to finally make base DDD the main villain without any possession plotlines, I can't deny how undeniably cool this evil clone looks. Some fans are drawing connections to the Dark Matter Knight, but I'm hoping this is a brand new force of evil, something we haven't seen before. Whoever this villain is, he has to be playable after finishing the story mode. And now that the full campaign is confirmed, it will be interesting to see just how ambitious it turns out to be. The CGI cutscene alone screams Smash Bros energy, and if that's any indication, maybe we'll even get more cinematic moments throughout the mode, just like in Smash. There was also a brief instance that mimicked the ending of Air Raid's original opening cutscene, so either Air Riders is planning to fully recreate that intro or fuse it with a new take. The story mode will likely be a sequence of races with unique rules, possibly interspersed with boss fights similar to the DDD battle from Air Ride. With Dynablade and Cracker already confirmed, there's a good chance they'll get some spotlight, and that alone would justify the cutscenes, and what's likely to be a rather ambitious final. One direction they could take is something closer to F-Zero GX story mode. In that game we got multiple CGI cutscenes, a dedicated narrative, unique tracks and missions separate from the main racing content. Those mission courses weren't nearly as complex as full races, but they offered far more variety and purpose than simply redoing standard tracks with some dialogue sprinkled in. It's hard to tell which direction Air Riders chooses, but World of Light and Smash did the best with what it had to offer and was worth the climax alone. There's still a few details I haven't touched on, like the incredibly satisfying crunchy animation they kept from Air Ride whenever a machine is destroyed, the stylish UI or the highly promising soundtrack. You could probably make an entire video just on Sakurai being unintentionally hilarious alone, like when he praises the game as if he isn't the director. This direct alone gave me enough stuff to talk about the rest of the year, and I fully intend to dissect it even further, with videos dedicated to specific features or ideas we have seen so far. And considering there's still more information coming with yet another Air Ride dedicated direct in the near future, it's safe to say my schedule will be completely Air Riders focused for 2025. The most important takeaway from this presentation, however, was seeing just how much the sequel caters to Air Ride fans. It's rare to see a successor outshine its predecessor so effortlessly, especially after more than 20 years. As you grow older, not every game gives you that spark of excitement anymore, but I've never looked forward to a Kirby game more than this. A new Kirby title has the potential to finally dethrone my longtime favorite and become my new number one in the series. All the cards are on the table, they just have to be played right.
I wonder if I'll ever get to take a break.
こりゃマリオカートで良いですね。こりゃ完全にマリオカートで良いでしょう。ラックルジョーが、ライトスターに乗ってますね。これは今回は残念ながらボタンを1つ追加してしまいました。いやー、人のプレイでは画面用意するかもしれませんから、画面から少し離れたり画面を小さくするのがおすすめです。気持ちのいいゲームですね。ゲーム作りってなんでこんなに大変なんでしょうね。